What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode 136 of the Anthony Jennings podcast. And today I'm bringing on an international friend of mine to share some online business building tips with you. So if you're scaling an online business, or maybe you've just started one, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ. And my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. Now, before I tell you about today's guest, before I bring him on, I want to let you know about my brand new book. It's called Unstoppable Beacon. I'm really excited about this book because it really captures a lot of my life's work up to this point. And I know with 100% certainty, once you read the book, it's going to help you maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and really unlock a whole new level of freedom inside your life and in your business. And you can get the book today by going to unstoppablebeacon.com. Plus, I have some bonus trainings as a surprise for you. And it's just my way of saying thank you when you purchase the book. So again, head on over to unstoppablebeacon.com to grab that book today. So with that being said, let me tell you about today's guest. So his name is Jan Koch. I first met him back in, I think it was 2011 on Twitter, actually. He's a great guy. He's a WordPress wizard. He has tried a whole lot of things in this online business world. He's created a lot of success for himself, and he's also failed at a lot of things along the way. He's been hosting virtual events starting back in 2015, and his virtual events have really brought over together over 10,000 registered attendees and reached more than 110 countries, which is kind of crazy to think of. And over time, he's really developed a very, very unique approach to hosting virtual events. And he's now decided to start bringing the new way of running online events to the market at large. And in this episode, he just shares a ton of wisdom, very vulnerably. So let's go ahead and bring him onto the show. Jan, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, AJ. It's been a while since we last spoke.
Dude, it has been. I saw just the other day that you acquired a company.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I acquired Virtual Summit Mastery.
Nice. What made you want to do that?
Essentially, it came out of nowhere, really. I'm friends with the founder, Navid Moases, since 2013. So probably as long as we know each other. And you've worked with him in the past as well on the movement summit that you did. He approached me in November last year, so November 2020, that he wanted to change his business and wanted to go into a new direction. And he was looking for somebody to take over VSM. And I was one of the people on his list. I was not the first he approached, but I was the one who said yes.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's exciting, dude. Because I think virtual summits are only going to get more popular with the whole COVID and everything that's going on, right?
Yeah. That was my main reason. I wanted to focus on virtual summits anyway. I wanted to build a done-for-you virtual summit agency in 2021. And now having the credibility of VSM in the background, which is one of the leading training programs in this space, and being able to brand this on my own over the next couple of years, that was just an opportunity I couldn't pass on.
So what's your plan for transitioning? Because I felt like Virtual Summit Mastery was very built upon Navid's personal brand. I know it's a business in itself, but it's built on his personal brand. So this is going to be interesting. What is your plan from essentially acquiring a brand under a personal brand, but being able to transition it to, are you going to build a personal brand yourself to let that live under, or just keep it more of a company brand?
I really want to make this a company brand. And for the next years, I have to become the face of VSM. But I really want the term VSM to stand on its own and to not be tied to any person who's running the business. But essentially, I've just acquired a lot of work because Navid is everywhere. He is on so many podcasts. He has been featured on so many platforms. And I'm playing catch up with him and just trying to, essentially wherever he was, I want to go to as well, and then go some steps beyond that. So the first way I did that is I wrote a book called The VSM Method, which is on Amazon right now. And that's something that he wanted to do but never got to because he was busy doing other stuff. And now I am trying to replace his face in as many platforms as possible, but that will take a while.
Awesome. Did you write the book, or did a little guy named Jarvis write the book? I'm just curious.
I wrote the book mostly. I had help from Jarvis. So, for everybody who's not in the know, Jarvis is the tool conversion.ai, which is an AI-based copywriter, if you want. And the book is based on an article I had written but never published that was already 4,500 words. And I then took that article, reframed it, and added the VSM process to it, which is like a 7-step process to hosting virtual events. And when I hit writer's block, I would use Jarvis to find some new angles to talk about certain topics and find some new ways I could frame things. But mostly it was based on content I already had, and now turned out into a 20,000 word book, roughly 20K.
Nice. How are you liking Jarvis, man? I've been using it to write some emails and things of that nature for myself, and it saved me a lot of time. How are you finding the use of Jarvis?
It's interesting. I love it, but I don't use it as much as I want to. So one of the big focuses I have for 2021 is my YouTube channel. And I'm really excited that they just launched these YouTube scripts template where you can do like listicles and how-to videos on YouTube. So I will probably use that quite a lot. For emails, not so much. I find that I have quite a conversational style for writing emails, at least for my daily email newsletter. So using Jarvis there just slows me down, to be honest, because I have to think about what do I put in, and then pick the right output that Jarvis created, rephrase that again to make it match my voice. And I just had one email the other day where I wasn't sure what to talk about. Usually I batch write my emails, and on Monday I write the entire week. And on one email, I didn't know what I wanted to talk about specifically. I just had this topic of YouTube marketing in my mind. And then I put like YouTube marketing into Jarvis, created a list of blog article ideas, which I reframed into an email then.
Nice. I like using the ADA framework, that AIDA, for just podcasts.
Yeah.
I write everything else, my daily emails I write, except for my podcast, the things that are going to promote a podcast. Like I'm just like, oh, I can just take a little piece of this from the show notes page, which kind of captures the summary, about 400 word or 400 word count. Drop that into the ADA template, go boop, and it gives me 4 options. I'm like boop, and then I can just tweak it with my own voice and sentence structure, but it does 90% of the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it for getting started on a project.
Yeah.
And then I usually find that it comes up with ideas that I didn't think of myself. One thing that is a little bit frustrating from time to time is because I have somewhat technical content, I would say, is that it pulls up statistics that are just haywire. So, for example, I was rewriting an article on today, and it just pulled out that each referral is worth at least $2,000, and that it's 70% more likely to convert and stuff like that. So that is where I'm a little bit frustrated with Jarvis.
Well, the good thing though is you could just use it as a placeholder for psychology, because that's just a bit of like social proof. So you're just like, okay, cool. So they're putting some social proof in here. What is a piece of social proof that I know of that I could replace it with? And it would still kind of follow the psychological framework.
Yeah, that's true.
And the other thing I like using Jarvis for is headlines for emails or subject lines.
Yeah.
I've been using that a lot recently, and it comes up with totally ideas. I'm like, I never even thought of that one, but that one's really good.
Yeah, and for headlines on landing pages too, I'm working on a Summit landing page currently, and all the headlines and subheadlines come from Jarvis.
Nice. What have been some of like the biggest mistakes you've made in this game of online marketing? I've known you since 2011. You and I connected on Twitter, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And we built a relationship and we plugged in, but you've been like through WordPress to developing plugins to now virtual summits. So like, yeah, what are some of the big mistakes you've made along the way?
Where do I start? So one of the bigger mistakes recently is that I joined a company in a part-time position. It sounded too good to be true, and it was. I was hired as their CTO in a part-time position, and being the CTO in a startup, I should have known that a part-time position really means 50 to 60 hours a week instead of the 20 that were in the contract. So that didn't work out. In general, for online marketing and online business, I would say one of the biggest mistakes I made is trying too many different things and not talking to other people enough. The one thing that I found differentiating myself, and I did that in the very beginning, that's how we connected, is like
Right.
just making friends, making relationships. At some point, I would have so much work that I put down my head and just focus on the clients and the network that I had instead of continually expanding. And that was where my business plateaued. And that is where I first tapped into virtual summits, is like to make new friends across the entire industry I was in, which is the WordPress space. And that then led to more business growth in the end. It's like just knowing people, being friends with people.
What advice would you have for somebody that doesn't really know how to make friends online? Like I was talking to a gentleman the other day. He's in university and he's like, "Man, I'm feeling really lonely." And I was like, "So are you don't feel connected?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not feeling connected with my peers." And I was like, "Well, do you guys have like a Slack forum or a Facebook community?" He's like, "Yeah, we have a Slack forum." I'm like, "Well, why don't you just go to the Slack forum and say, 'Hey, I'd really like to connect with some people around ABC topic. Who would like to do that on Thursday at this time or this time?' Maybe there's some people that would be open to that, right?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I didn't think about that." He's like, "I'm good offline connecting, but I don't really know how to translate offline connecting into online connecting." What advice would you have for people trying to expand their network online without it feeling just like, I don't know, shitty and sleazy?
I think people need to get out of their own way in that regard. My wife is the best example for that. She's really good connecting offline, but she hates connecting online.
Mm,
Um, and I think what's holding people back is this feeling of maybe not being enough, and trying to compare to all the other people that seemingly do fantastic work online, and they all just show the sunshine and rainbows, as you and I know, and nobody
totally.
talks about the hard stuff and the issues and the hard situations. Once you understand that the people you're talking to are just humans too, they
Right.
have bad days. They have days they get nothing done on. They have days they feel like an and that they shouldn't be where they are. And I feel like that every day. And that is why I know that moving in the right direction. It's like, as soon as I feel in control, I'm not moving fast enough. That's what I live by these days. It's like
Mm,
I need to constantly talk to somebody who I presume does things better than I am, so that I can learn. And that is like a humble mindset. I'm not going out talking to people trying to preach or trying to teach them something or trying to impose my opinion on somebody else. I'm just genuinely interested in what people are up to, what are they doing differently that I am doing, and just having a conversation around that.
I think that's awesome because a lot of people these days are going through programs. I'm not going to name any of these names. They're great programs, but the industry gets indoctrinated on a certain methodology for building relationships or pitching their shit to people. And it's like the whole relationship game just goes out the window. And like I had somebody the other day, we're talking, he was in the crypto space. And he was like, "Are you interested in trading? And now, or do you understand crypto?" And I was like, "Yes, I understand. I have a bit. I've made some money on it. I'm not looking to day trade." Like it's really clear. And he's like, "Well, you're in luck. We can do it for you." I'm like, "Fuck you." Like the fuck? And so it's just
Yeah.
interesting how people don't slow down like, you did in 2011, 12, 13. I did at that same time. And I still try to now to just build relationships. Like I don't
Yeah.
really have an outcome. Like if there's some synergy and we can find some great win-wins, awesome. But more than that, I'm just legitimately looking to shake hands and say hi and get to know you and that's it. No, that's it.
Yeah,
Right.
100% agree with you. And the other thing that I notice on my virtual events is I have these virtual networking lounges, I call them. It's like a standing video call where attendees and speakers just can pop at their own convenience and build relationships and talk. And many people find are not taking advantage of that because they don't feel comfortable, because maybe English isn't their first language. That is also something. They don't know how to use the tech to join a video call. Maybe they are not comfortable speaking English. They would much rather write English. And I have a funny accent, I think, being a German. So definitely English people notice that I'm not a native English speaker and I fuck up grammar all the time. But I don't care about that, because what does it matter what somebody else on the other side of the globe thinks of me?
Yeah.
That is also something I learned the hard way. It's like, don't tie your worth, your feeling of self-worth to what other people think about you, but rather compare yourself to the person you were yesterday and just see if you could make one step further into the direction you want to go.
So good, dude. And just being an American and you being a German, I'm just gonna like, for those who are like, oh, what if people think about accent? Every American I know, and I know quite a few Americans, they think accents are amazing, right? So if somebody's speaking English with an accent, they're just like, they're just captivated by it. They're just like, wow, that's really awesome, right? There's not like
Yeah.
there's not any judgment. So I feel like uh, a lot of it is just their people's own fears and their projections that they're projecting onto people. And I've experienced this like when I hang out with people from Mexico. My Spanish is terrible, but I know enough to get by. And so if I'm using a little bit of my little Tex-Mex Spanish, they're just like grateful that I'm even trying to communicate in their language for us to find common ground on. And I feel like if that's across the world, as long as somebody's genuinely trying to communicate and connect, there isn't any of like, oh, that accent, I can't believe that grammar, I can't believe I think that's just all people's own internal fears and projections that they're putting out on other people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I had on my first summit, I had Rand Fishkin from Moss on, and he said something that stuck with me for like 6 years now. And that was me being a German makes me listen more carefully to what people say in English, because I have to consciously process what people say to me and then translate it into German. At least back in the day. Now I'm even dreaming in English, but back in the day, I would have to consciously process what has been said. And that is something I try to cultivate that I have. I listen with intent. If you say something, I don't just, as you said with the day trading example, I don't just ramp over what you said, but I try to really understand what people I am talking to or writing with are saying.
Awesome. Dude, and I think a lot of people don't do that because what happens is as they're listening, they're like 2 steps ahead in the conversation, 3 steps ahead in the conversation, trying to figure out what they're going to say. And they're not just like present and connected and being with another person. It goes a really long way, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual, it doesn't matter. So talk about some of the mistakes. Like what have been some of your biggest revelations, your biggest breakthroughs that have led to like big growth for you?
The biggest breakthrough by far was the first summit that I did in 2015, the WP summit. Brought together not many people by today's standard, like 2,600 attendees or something. So definitely not a lot. But what it did is it opened doors and it put me on the map. So what I learned from that is, if you want to establish yourself as a thought leader in the space, you have to do something different compared to what anybody else is doing. And you have to impact a lot of people with that. And that is a lot of work in most cases. And it also requires some financial investment in most cases. But it comes back to that building relationships part. It's like the more people you know and the more people that speak favorably of you because you were present and you made them feel good in the conversation and you had some advice for them potentially, or just made them feel good because they could talk to you and share what load they are carrying and share that with you. The more people like that you have in your network, the more you can amplify your message in the end. And that obviously is what everybody needs if you are in this online space and if you want to make a living online.
Yeah, awesome. Now, do you think for the people who like have built an event, and I think a lot of people think, okay, if I'm going to do this big thing, that's going to give me the credibility. Where does just the little daily consistent showing up and doing the work? And doing the work, what I mean by that is like creating a piece of content and shipping it to the marketplace, creating the email and shipping it to your list. Like just the daily consistent work. Where does that play into this whole thing of creating credibility and relationships and influencer status and building an online business?
Consistency is so important. And I just learned that probably in the last 6 months. So I'm in business since 2011, and it took me like 10 years almost to become consistent with my email marketing because I never had a process for that. And once I did start sending daily emails, open rates went up, click-through rates went up, engagement went up in terms of clicks and replies and stuff like that. I just have so many conversations that I wouldn't have had without consistent email marketing. And when it comes to virtual events, it's kind of the same thing, but a little bit more scattered. So it's a lot of work to orchestrate the speakers, to orchestrate affiliates and sponsors, and keep the attendees in the loop, build all the websites that you need, build the campaigns around the event. So what you have to do is you have to break down the steps that it takes you to run your event and then execute on them daily. Set aside like an hour or two every day for 90 days. Take something from that task list, execute it consistently, talk about what you have executed to keep people in the loop. It's like that Gary Vaynerchuk statement, document, don't create. Just document what you do. And that is an approach I like with virtual events too. It's like as soon as I get ready to drive people to the event website, I start talking about everything. I start talking about, I just interviewed this guest. I just highlighted this episode in my daily newsletter. I just created this piece of swipe copy. I just created this infographic, blah, blah, blah. But I just want to keep my audience in the loop with what I'm doing. And that needs to be consistent.
Yeah, and the audience here, we're talking about email list, but it is also like just the people who follow you on Facebook, or if you're on Instagram, is that also the people that you're also creating content and pushing out to on a daily basis?
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I was more consistent on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all that. I'm not right now. What I do, or I don't have the frequency that I want to have. Let's phrase it that way. For example, with Virtual Summit Mastery, what I'm doing consistently is at least one webinar a month. And with my position at Cloudways as a Cloudways Maverick to help them spread their brand, we do monthly webinars as well. So there is a piece of consistency, but it's not like this daily post, daily live video, something like that. And I think that is different for everybody. So you need to find your own rhythm with this content creation, and not because you and I are sending daily email newsletters. It's not the best fit for everybody. Just because it works for us doesn't mean it works for somebody listening to this. So I would say experiment, see what rhythm you can continually hold, and just stay with that rhythm as long as you see good rewards from it.
How do you think somebody finds their rhythm? Because I think there's so many options. So how does somebody find their rhythm? I have some thoughts on it and I may share them, but I'm curious what you're going to say.
For me, it really was trial and error until I didn't see the errors anymore. So, for example, with the biggest change I made was my daily email newsletter. I was not consistent with email for 5 years straight. And then at some point, I read an article by Michael Killen from Sell Your Service, and he shared how good daily newsletters worked for him. So I said, okay, let's give it another try. I took a step back. I mapped out like a process I learned from a friend of mine, Davinder Singh Kind. And he has this approach of note-taking every day and then taking 1 hour a week to turn those notes into newsletters. And he just does curated content newsletters. So he just would note down articles or videos he found interesting, put those into the newsletter. What I did is now I have a Notion template where I just, probably from this interview too, I will put some thoughts that I have, some interesting ideas we talked about in that document. And then I always have this list of content I can write about, because my biggest struggle with email marketing and consistent email marketing is, what do I talk about in the emails? How do I come up with so much content? And by just documenting what I do on a daily basis, putting that as notes into Notion, and then setting aside 1 hour a week or maybe 2 hours in the beginning to turn those notes into newsletters and schedule them in Active Campaign, that was the biggest game changer for me. So it's like I tried countless different methods, but this one method I found that worked and that didn't produce any errors for me.
So what's a time period that you commit to know like, hey, this works or this doesn't work?
2 weeks usually.
2 weeks. Nice.
Yeah.
You're very vastly different than me. I told myself I was going to, so I switched to daily emails this year too. And I told myself I'm gonna do it for 6 months, every day for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, we'll see how it works.
I'm not that patient.
Because I've really been in this mode last year and this year too, where I'm doing work for the sake of work.
Yeah.
And so, because I think oftentimes, especially in the online game, we're like, okay, I'm gonna do something for 2 weeks. Did it work? Did it not work? And then we're like, oh, it didn't work. And then we jump ship and we try a whole new strategy. And I think a lot of people, they just jump,
Yeah.
rather than getting into a groove where like their worth, their identity, their confidence, their certainty isn't rooted in a result. Now, don't get me wrong, I like results, right? I like results. But there's also this paradox where like you just do something because you choose to do it. And there's a lot of power in that. And so in doing that, I did that with my podcast last year. I said 2 episodes for an entire year. I don't care if anybody listens to the damn thing, it's done. And that was a decision that was made before I even dove in, did it. And what happened on the other side of that is, yes, an audience was built and more positioning and there was results and all that stuff. But more importantly, there was this way of being of just doing work for the sake of work. And it's brought a lot more joy to the whole game. And so that's why for me specifically, I was like, because I read a similar article to you and I've seen similar fruit to you. Open rates are up, click-through rates are up, engagement is up. And that's why I've done it. You've talked about processes a couple of times through this and how important they are to helping you create content. I think a lot of content creators don't have processes at all. And I believe that's probably one of the biggest reasons why they're not able to create content consistently. How have you discovered processes? Is it just something you've created, or is it something you've learned or you've paid to acquire? How have you created processes?
Processes were ingrained in me, I think, because I'm
Of course, you're
a
German. You're
methodical
just like
person.
systematic, like a machine, just like your football team.
Yeah, yes, and I am also a developer by trade, so I have an integrated degree in business informatics. Part of that was learning how to code,
Nice.
and that structures you to think in terms of processes, because you have to think about this function and that function, how do they work together and stuff like that. So being a coder, I think is predestined to also think in processes. And I like to be sure that when I do things more than once, I want to have a reasonably equal quality of outcome in what I do. So I'm a big fan of processes because they make results repeatable in most cases. And also, of course, they allow you to scale. So what I'm doing right now is I'm training a VA to create the content for me using Jarvis. And the way I discovered processes or the processes I use right now, I should say, is again a lot by trial and error, by talking to people and asking how they do their own stuff. And you talked about jumping around and just trying different stuff all the time. That was me for years, and it didn't get me anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% aligned with you there, that you have to stick to your guns. And what I found is I had a mentor last year to help me level up my mindset in terms of money and success and family life and all that stuff. And what I learned from him is that you need to really focus on what matters for you, set a goal, and then find your way to reach that goal. And with the processes, I'm still trying a lot, but I make sure that everything I try goes into the same direction, if you will. So for that email marketing example, my goal is not to write a daily email. My goal is to have a more engaged list to get more results from my email marketing. And daily newsletters just seem to be a way to reach that goal. If it were that one email a week would suffice, I would be much happier because it would be less work. But that would then be the process. So I think to find or to finally answer your question, to find the processes that work for you, you first need where you want to go and what you want to achieve.
Yeah. And what has helped me is making decisions of like, okay, in order to build an audience, I have to decide to be the dude who ships content daily. So where are my people at? Well, my people are on Facebook. So I'm going to do a daily Facebook post. Okay. Well, what's the theme for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? And so now I have, I created a system with themes. So I'm like, okay, when I'm going to write these things, I chose Monday. It takes me about 3 hours to write my entire week's worth of content. So then I went to work just doing Facebook, boom, 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 every week. Sit down, create the post. I have a VA too, who then schedules everything. She's incredible. She's amazing. I love having her on our team. She's incredible. And so she's taken that off my back and she's doing the posting and some of the admin stuff. And then once I did that for a couple of weeks, what I then did was take that content that was getting engagement on Facebook and started sending that out to the email list on a daily basis. And so the email list content kind of trailed the Facebook content, and it could go either way. And this has been like stacking it. And so I think a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, daily emails, daily post. Oh, and two podcasts. Oh my gosh, how do you do it? Well, some of it is just like multicasting content, and it does change a little bit, but not a whole lot. But so it's just, for me, it's like making the decision to figure out like, okay, I'm committed to do these amounts of things because that's going to get me leads coming in to build my list. It's going to generate sales calls. It's going to generate our revenue goals for each month. And then you just do the work for the sake of doing the work. And when I do that, everything tends to work.
Yeah, I love this. And that is something that most people I talk to don't understand either. It's like this question, how do you do all this stuff? And what people don't realize is exactly what you just said. The processes feed upon each other. Yes. The process for the emails feeds all the other content on my end. And it's the other way around for you, where social feeds email. But essentially, I think what's the beautiful thing of being process oriented is you start to see potential where you can do the work once and have various results. So later today, I have a webinar, for example, with somebody who's really good at repurposing content. And he has this process that takes a 10-minute video and produces 100 pieces of content for it, spread across various channels. And that is something that I think more people need to pay attention to. And it is hard because it requires you to take a step back from creating the content itself and actually look at how you are creating the content.
Yes. And I think the other piece that's really important is in this online game, people who maybe are just coming in, or maybe they're a year or 2 or 3 into their journey. I've been in this game for more than a decade now. You have been as well. And so if they're looking at me, or if they're looking at you, or maybe they're looking at Gary Vee, or maybe they're looking at Amy Porterfield or Subi Zimmerman, or whoever they're looking at, and they're comparing where they're at to what they're doing, and they're like, oh, I got to do all of that stuff if I'm going to play the game like they're playing. Yeah. Good fucking luck, because that was built over a decade of micro commitments and layering upon everything. So part of it is aligning with the truth of like, where are you at now? You're very getting clear on where you want to go, but then just figuring out like, what's the thing that's just going to be like the base hit? Or like, if we just want to use a football analogy, like soccer, for those who aren't like European, like what's the thing that's just going to move the ball down the field? Like, let's not even worry about scoring the goal right now. Let's just kick the ball off. Like the whistle has just blown. Let's just kick the ball off the finish. I mean, the center line there, right? And just keep doing that day by day by day by day by day. And if we do that, then we do get there. But I think so many people get caught up in comparison, and there's just no way for somebody to start out to just start doing all of those things just immediately, like they believe they should be doing. It's just nonsense, in my opinion. Would you agree?
100%. And I've been there myself. It's like, it is so tricky to fall in this comparison trap and to see what all the big names in the field are doing. And what helped me realize that is that there always is somebody who does more than you because they are longer in the game than you are. You are never going to catch up with them. That's just the truth. But I do have a question for you on that notion. Is like when you are just getting started and you don't know what will work, and you decide on, I do a daily Facebook post. It takes a ton of commitment and trust to do that, to spend the time on that, rather than trying different things and going different paths at the same time. How do you develop that trust in yourself? That's something that I struggled with the most.
So part of that is coming back home. And so this is a deep question, something I'm very good at understanding. So part of this comes back to understanding most human beings are wired to run a success equation, meaning I will be worthy of success, acceptance, security, accomplishments, whatever, when I have A, B, or C, or when I become X, Y, or Z, right? So as long as that's the equation, the trust and respect is out there. It's out there. We're trying to produce the trust and respect. Now, there's a universal law on the planet, the law of being, that states that the world will give us exactly that which we are at our core consisting of the thoughts and feelings that we hold on to predominantly. So if we're looking to externally produce, I will be able to trust and respect myself when I become, that's out there. Well, what happens is when we achieve X, Y, or Z or become A, B, or C, we just push that down the horizon. We never arrive. So part of it is coming home and getting rid of all of those stories and meanings and limiting beliefs and programming to realize you're worthy because you exist. Nothing to prove, nothing to defend. You have a desire, honor the desire. You have a desire for a reason. So part of it is coming home to that. And then when that's your foundation, we get to go on a journey to learn how to discipline ourselves to trust and respect ourselves. So for instance, this is very small stuff. If we tell ourselves, hey, I'm going to get up at 7 a.m, we set the alarm clock, and we don't get up at 7, we just violated our own self. We just proved to ourselves we can't trust ourselves. We just proved to ourselves that our word is not our bond. So when we can align with that truth and then say, okay, well, let me come back home. What is it I'm willing to commit to and make a decision? And then we start honoring that trust and respect muscle starts getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So part of the game is, number one, we have to turn off comparison and stop looking out there. And I'm not saying forever, like there's a time and place to like, well, what's going on in the industry and what's going on in this and what are the tactics and the tools and the strategies people are using and what am I drawn to? Listen to that. Maybe go and invest in that to acquire those skill sets and have some access to some strategy to help you collapse some time. But then once you have that, now we got to put on the blinders to just follow and do the work so we can build that trust and respect muscle. And then you're coming back to like, well, let's try this for 2 weeks, this for 2. That's just completely destroying that trust and respect muscle, right? Yeah. So that's, in my opinion, part of the game of like learning how to trust and respect ourselves. And to take this back even like more primitive and more basics, it's like, man, if you do a cold shower every day, right? Like you can do a hot shower, but then 20-second cold shower, like make that decision. Make a decision that you're going to exercise and move your body every single day. Make a decision that you're going to drink a half a gallon of water every day. Make a decision that you're going to meditate for at least 10 minutes a day. Just do those 4 things and honor your word in those 4 things. I guarantee you do that for 30 days. On the other side of that 30-day journey, that trust and respect muscle is just going to be grown. Yeah. And then so now you can start expanding your influence into taking this kind of, I don't know, just ground in the industry and the things that you want to create. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. And that is actually something that I went through last year too. And I think the biggest shift I've noticed is that the perspective I have on my marketing changed, because I'm as you said, I'm not proving my knowledge anymore. I'm just sharing what I believe to be true and believe to be working. And that humble perspective resonates with people a lot more. For me to be in this stage, it took me to become a father for the first time. Well, when I knew that I would be a father, my life changed, of course, but it changed on a mental level much more than in real life, if you want, because I suddenly had to be a role model and I have to act the way I want my daughter to act. And I have to live the values I want to instill in my daughter so that she can become a confident woman and has her core strength and isn't dependent on outside validation, except for mom and dad, of course, that's ingrained. But as she grows up, I don't want her to be dependent on outside validation. I want her to be at peace with herself. And that is how I changed, because I was that guy who promised himself to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, go for a 30-minute run. And that would hold for like a week or 2, and then I would fail. because I would set these ultra high goals every time, which isn't like the baby steps you want to start with. And once I changed that, I learned to trust myself, as you said, and that made all the difference.
So good, man. If you could go back in time and give yourself, your younger self, some wisdom to help you get results faster, what would you tell him?
That is another deep question. So let me just think about the moment I decided to become 7 was on a nervous breakdown. I was in the hospital, working 70 hours a week, studying, or working 40 hours and then 30 hours for studying for a master's degree on the side. And that wasn't the right fit for me, clearly, because my body broke down. In that moment, I decided it cannot come any worse. And being a business owner cannot be more stressful than in the position I was in. Probably what I told myself in that moment is that it is okay to work crazy hours, spinning your wheels, and to basically work yourself into the ground consistently in order to get results. And those results for the master's degree were external motivation. It was that six-figure salary I was striving toward. If I could go back to that moment, I would say to myself that it is not okay to work 70 hours a week, no matter whether I'm employed or not, that it's very, very possible to earn 6 figures a year with less than 40 hours a week if you have the right processes in place. And I would tell myself to trust in my abilities to figure stuff out, because in those moments where I wasn't sure what direction I was going, I would work myself into the ground. And that would never work over the past decade.
Awesome, man. And if people want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about virtual summits, they want to host them, maybe they want somebody to do them for them, how can they connect with you? How can they learn more about virtual summits?
The best place is virtualsummitmastery.com. Don't be confused right now. It is still branded under Naveed Moass's brand, but that's going to change over the next couple of months.
Awesome. Well, Jan, thank you, brother, for being here. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, and thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for the great conversation.
Well, there you have it, my friend, Jan Koch. This was a fun conversation filled with lots of wisdom from the trenches. I hope you're really able to learn some hacks to writing copy using conversion.ai. I hope you're able to take note of some of the big mistakes that he shared so you can learn from his wisdom and really avoid those costly mistakes yourself. And most of all, I hope you're able to take some of the advice that Jan shared and implement it into your life and your business so you can create your big visions faster. So that's all I have for this episode of the Anthony John Mix podcast. If you know someone who needs to hear this episode, send it over to them in their DM, screenshot it, share it on social media, send them an email, text message, whatever you have to do to get this episode into their ear holes. And also, please keep those 5-star reviews coming over on iTunes, because that is what helps get the show found by more people. So thank you so much for being here today. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Mix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.